Welcome to the Be Your Soul podcast, a semi-monthly podcast about energy, self-growth, and the soul. I'm your host, Sky Bradshaw. Each episode, we will have 3 segments to support the energy of your authentic self. The unclouded heart, opening up space for spirit and the universe to bring forward nuggets of wisdom rooted in the current episode's topic. Skylights, exciting, knowledgeable, and helpful guests. And that's what Sky says, full of exercises, tools, and guidance on how to do the work. Let's tune in to opening up space to receive this episode in the healthiest way possible. Allow yourself to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, invite your body to relax, 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 relax. And as we find ourselves in this relaxed position, we open up our energies to the ancestors, loved ones, and friends to come together today to heal and guide us and lift us to the highest version of ourselves in the light of the universe. So we may hear what we need to hear, know what we need to know, connect how we need to connect, and be what we need to be for our highest and best good and the highest and best good of all involved. So today we're going to talk about letting be, as I like to call it. Often people like to call it letting go, but letting go has a little bit of a stress point to it because it seems like it's something that we just imagine we're supposed to be able to do because there's a meme about it. And so really recognizing when we think of letting be, it really is to release stressing over or control, overthinking, or trying to maneuver or change something that's happened in the past. And when we think of it along those lines of letting it go back to the space and place from which it's been, letting it tune into that time frame that it came from without carrying the weight of it with us. That's really what we're letting go. We're letting it be what it was in that moment, letting it go back to the space and place from which it came, and allowing ourselves to be free of that overthinking, stress, control, worry energy. Another reason why some people find it hard to let it go is because they believe that in letting it be or letting it go, that they're condoning whatever happened, that they're giving permission, saying, that was okay. And it really doesn't mean it was okay. It can be totally not okay, and you don't want to carry it around with you for the rest of your life. So giving yourself that gift to say, I can release this back to where it belongs and not have to let it take up space in my head. I don't have to, let it move into my current energy field in a way that feels heavy and powerless and wrong. And so we really want to think about how we can give ourselves permission to use the and in this situation and simultaneously say, I did not like that, and I refuse to carry it with me for the rest of my life. It brings us, when we think about that, to a really good present moment thought process. Because if we were tuning in to something that we wished were different or that we had expectations was going to turn out in a different way, and we're carrying those historic energies with us, then we have to stay with one foot in the past. But if we let them back into those spaces, let it go back to the space and place from which it came, then it allows us that present moment alignment with what is right now, with acceptance of where I am, releasing expectation and judgment that it should be different or that I want something that isn't in this moment. It also frees us, because as we know, truth brings choice, to be truthful for where we are. And what I like to tell people is if we don't know where we are, we can't map where we're going. And if we're constantly carrying something from history, then we're using roadmaps from the past instead of tuning into right here, right now, in this moment. This is where I am. And therefore, I have the power to grow, change, move, maneuver in whatever way without those heavy weights. There isn't enough room in our energy field to carry everything that we've ever experienced in our life. It just feels heavy and it feels tiresome, and it brings us to a space of feeling weighted down. And so that's where I feel like letting be or letting go is powerful. And that, like, let me sit that mile marker down back where I passed it instead of carrying it forward and trying to have all this weight within my energetic system in this moment. So I would tune into thinking about that. You can bring some awarenesses to yourself of how you might be carrying things and what's unhealthy, but just really start with paying attention and giving yourself permission to set that old luggage down and repack a new bag to move forward.
Production of the Be Your Soul podcast is made possible in part by Island of Salvation Botanica. A visit to the Island of Salvation Botanica will enlighten you in the rich blend of culture and spiritual traditions that is New Orleans. The shop carries Vodou religious supplies, medicinal herbs, works of art, and more. It's considered to be one of the most authentic Vodou shops in New Orleans by locals and visitors alike. Located in a project co-developed by Sally Ann Glassman, the New Orleans Healing Center on St. Claude Avenue is only steps away from the French Quarter. Now stay tuned for a deep dive about letting be with Julianna Sloane, our guest today on Skylights.
Welcome to Skylights. This is the part of the show where we have great guests and awesome people come on and talk about the topic of today, which is letting be, which I like to say, or letting go as most people know it. Today we have Julianna Sloane, who is a meditation teacher, hypnosis practitioner, and shamanic counselor. She also happens to be a great friend and awesome person. And I'm so glad to have you here. So when it comes to letting be, what are some suggestions that you think that someone trying to go through this process could do? What do you think about letting be and what people can do about it?
Thanks. It's such a great question. And I love your phrasing, actually, of letting be so much more than the typical letting go. As a Buddhist teacher, a lot of what's talked about in the Dharma is this concept of letting go. And a lot of people tend to misinterpret things. So there's often a misconception that letting go or letting be means not caring anymore or just setting something down and being totally done for it. But often what letting be or letting go really means is starting to come into greater acceptance and greater alignment with what's actually happening. So thinking about someone who's in the process of letting go or letting be, trying to move through, often a difficult circumstance. Some of the things that I would say is really, especially this is very much informed by my work as a depth hypnosis practitioner, because I work one-on-one with people to unravel karmic patterns and really on an energetic, physical, emotional, mental level, let go. Mm-hmm. One thing that I would say is that if you're having a hard time letting go or letting be, that it's usually an indicator that there's something really important to learn there. Mm-hmm. Most of the different issues that we're working on letting go, letting be, processing, coming to peace with, there's a lot more layers than we like to give them credit for. So some of my biggest advice for people would be to trust the process and actually get quite curious about what's underneath all the many layers of where they might want to be letting go, all the things they might want to be processing. When I work with clients, a lot of the time, someone might come in for anxiety or insomnia, and over the period of a number of sessions, we could end up doing anything from Yeah, clearing ancestral trauma or energetic blocks to calling back in parts of the self that had been really lost or neglected. So, if you're having a hard time letting go of something, there's probably a lot more to learn there. And it usually will start to let go once you've understood and investigated and made peace with all the different threads of that experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes we get really hyper focused on the leaves and we don't realize not only are there limbs, but a trunk and then roots. Yeah. And so recognizing like how we are curious and investigative and really tune in to those different aspects so we're not being distracted by the leaves only. They might be important, but they're probably not the base of what you want to work on. So following that path down to the depth of what needs to be done and then opening up space for that healing to happen in ways that are supportive of all the layers in that. So I think the work you do is beautiful when it comes to that.
Yeah, I love that analogy of the tree and the roots, because so much of the time we're only looking at what's above the surface. And oftentimes it's actually what's under the surface, deep, deep underground, that's usually been ignored, that is actually at the heart of where our letting go needs to take place.
It takes a lot of bravery to go from that symptomatic challenge down into the depth of the truth, and having someone who is supporting you in your bravery, so supporting you in your journey can be really important, because then not only are you not doing it alone, but they can offer a level of support and accountability for you to keep your focus, not allow yourself to move into that a little bit of denial or distraction energy that sometimes comes forward. I can fix the leaves really easily. Like, let me do that instead of getting to those depths. So that's another reason why I think the work you do is very beautiful.
Thank you.
So why would you say this is an important part of creating balance or wholeness in someone's life? Like, what about letting be or letting go helps support that balance?
Absolutely. When there are things that have not been processed or not been seen, not been known, when there's something that we're still grasping to or clinging to, there's a quote by Carl Jung, something along the lines of, unless we make the unconscious conscious, it will run our lives and we will call it fate. Something along those lines. Unless we've really gone through the process of letting be, letting go, coming into acceptance with various aspects of our life, oftentimes there'll be core beliefs or wounds or blind spots that'll really be running the show. And so in many ways, coming into balance, as you're naming that, it feels a lot to me like, well, what does true seeing look like? What does it look like to actually be in acceptance with the world and whatever it is that the world is handing us? It's really easy for us to, kind of internalize pain as some sort of punishment and praise or good fortune or good feeling as some kind of a reward. But the fact of the matter is that, we're human. Difficult things happen. And so letting go, letting be, coming into acceptance of our reality, whatever it looks like in that moment, can offer us a much greater balance, a much firmer ground to stand on, because we can approach our life with some semblance of equanimity, an ability to really accept things as they are and to respond. Having that kind of acceptance and equanimity doesn't mean that we don't care. It doesn't mean that we don't work to heal. It doesn't mean that we don't work to help others, but it does create a really strong foundation for us to stand on in order to heal, in order to help others.
Absolutely. And I always like to remind people that acceptance doesn't have to equal condoning. Like,
Yes.
we can tune into accepting something as it is in this moment and not judge it as bad, but also know we want something better in the next. And so how we sit with that letting be, this is as it is, not the story that I want to make it. And then in that acceptance, know that gives us power, because if we know where we are, we can map where we're going. Whereas if we are living in that non-acceptance, the denial or the not recognizing what is right now, then it starts us off course, because we're not in this moment of what is in this moment.
Oh, I'm so glad that you brought that in, because I do think a lot of the time people resist letting go, letting be, because they feel like, yeah, if I hold on to my anger, or if I hold on to my resentment or my hurt or my sense of being a victim, that it won't happen again.
Right.
And, it doesn't mean that what happened was okay.
Exactly.
But it does mean that we can move forward and understand, yeah, that happened. And, okay, you may not let that person back into your house, or you may do things differently in your next job, or you may treat yourself differently the next time around. Yeah, it's such an important, especially when we think about, things like forgiveness.
Absolutely.
Knowing that we can forgive, but that doesn't mean that we're inviting, that situation back into our lives is really important.
And it's freeing in our energy fields, because whenever we take that, I did not like that energy, and move it from those lower chakras into our heart center of compassion, forgiveness, love, and understanding, and then eventually move it up into giving it into the universal source, we're not having to hold that negative energy hostage in our system, which obviously we know like energy attracts like energy. The more that we harbor something that's unhealthy, the more we attract that. Whereas if we free it by letting it be, like, I did not like that, and I don't have to hold on to not liking that. I can release it. So I can move it through my energy field. I can let it be as it was in that moment, back in space and place and time, not in this moment where I am right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, it's a hard task.
It
sometimes.
is a very hard task. We talk about it like it so easy, but it definitely is. It's work. It takes a bravery and attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's some of the most courageous work that a person can do, really. I certainly encounter so many people that I'm working with who just are repeating the same pattern over and over and over and over, whether it's, getting into the same kind of relationship with someone who can't really show up for them, or self-sabotage or whatever. And, coming to that point of really seeing it clearly and moving from, that sort of survival level response and reaction, bringing it up into the heart, bringing it up into expression, bringing it up into some form of a release. It's the life's work for many of us, but the rewards are huge.
So true.
The freedom and the possibility of, being able to have something more supportive and happier it's so possible.
And thank you for the work that you do helping people get to that point.
Likewise. I know you've supported me over the years in those processes, and, so many dear friends and even family members.
Oh, I'm
so it's
always honored to be helpful.
Yeah, such a big place in my heart.
Oh, you the same with me. So I have a couple questions that I ask every guest. And the first one is, what do you think it means to be your soul?
That when you shared that question with me, the first word that really comes to mind is that sense of authenticity. Not living your life based on someone else's idea of who you should be, or based on the culture's influences and ideas about what you should be doing, but actually finding what's really true for you. And, you know, each one of us is going to live that out in so many different ways. But, you know, we're at a time right now, I think, in our culture where so many of the messages and influences and information coming at us, it's so strong and it's so incessant that we should be different, make more money, look better, you know, have the job or the partner or the big house, you know, whatever it is. And it's easy to get lost in those details and that pressure. But I think when I think of the idea of being your soul, it's like, okay, what if you were able to set down all of that noise? What would really fill your heart with joy? What would be service to the world? What would feel like your life had purpose? And I think those can usually point us in the right direction. So, yeah, living into whatever lights us up.
I love that. So, what is one thing that you do no matter what to make sure you get your self-care in?
Honestly, sleep.
I love that. That is good.
I am a really, really big advocate for actually getting sleep. You know, I'm thinking back to times when I was younger, especially like college. You'd maybe be at a party or something, and there were times my friends would tease me because it would be, you know, they'd want to go for a few more hours and I'd be ready to go to bed. But I just know that when I'm actually rested, when my body actually gets the chance to recharge in that way, that I can show up for my life so much better. And, you know, sleep is powerful.
Oh, yeah.
We're not just resting our body. Like we're processing emotions. We're connecting to wisdom and inspiration. And there's so many times that, you know, I've had like an intractable problem and gone to sleep and woken up the next morning actually with just really simple clarity around what needed to be done. I feel like in many ways I do some of my deepest work in my sleep. So I, you know, yeah, big fan of sleep. I
was going to
do
say
a
I'm
lot
a
of
fan
work
of
around
sleep too. Like,
yeah, it's great.
It's good.
It doesn't get enough love.
Yeah, I'm a fan of sleep too. Like it's one of the things, like when I'm talking to people, I always will say like, well, how are you sleeping right now? Like, how's that going on? Because it can make the world of difference in how you process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, things that feel totally acceptable and manageable when we've had enough sleep. If we don't, it's like a catastrophe.
It's the truth.
You know, it changes so much.
So thinking of being centered and balanced in your world, I like to ask the question, like, what does that feel like? Or what does that look like when you are hitting that sweet spot of centered and balanced? Like, what are the ingredients there?
Yeah, that's such a great question. You know, on that basic level, it is really, of course, things like sleep and good food and exercise and movement and all of those things. But for me in particular, part of when I know, okay, yeah, things are in balance right now, it's when I have a really solid sense of my own needs and my own desires. I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, if that means anything to you. So, yeah, I have a tendency to really get a lot out of being of service, really get a lot out of my connections with other people, really thrive off of showing up in that way. And of course, for folks with my particular personality type, it often means that we forget a little bit about ourselves from time to time. And so for me, one of the biggest signs that I'm not in balance is when I'm not speaking or noticing what I need or want. And one of the biggest signs that things are going well is that I can really articulate and ask for the things that I want and the things that I need and bring them closer into my life. So, for me, balance really looks a lot like making sure that I have time to connect with my friends and have fun, get sun, all of those things that actually make life feel really vibrant. Spend time in nature. Playfulness is huge.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it's really actually about bringing desires and needs into a real place of respect and honor in my life.
That is nice.
Well, for our listeners who don't know what it means to be a 2 on the Enneagram, could you share?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Enneagram is a personality typing system. What makes it pretty unique, though, is that it actually has kind of a psycho-spiritual component to it. So many people with a little bit more of a spiritual leaning or a seeking mentality often find it to be much more helpful than something like the Myers-Briggs. So what a 2 on the Enneagram is, they're basically archetypal roles. And the 2 often gets called the helper. And so, yeah, the natural inclination to help, to be of service, which a lot of folks who are in all kinds of roles, from healing work to leadership in nonprofit or social justice work. Yeah, people who are often called to help the world in some way, shape, or form. Often there's a good number of 2s in the mix.
Yeah. Is that a service that you offer for people, or?
It's not, but it's something that I'm like always tracking, because it does help me understand a little bit more about what some of the core needs and especially the core fears that a person might be carrying with them is. So it's something that I keep in the back of my mind when I'm working with folks.
Absolutely. And I have, maybe for the future, this person can come on, but I have someone who has done my Enneagram and I've worked with,
cool.
I definitely, I believe it's a powerful tool to tune into, to recognize, like you said, strengths and weaknesses. So maybe we'll tune into them in a future episode. That would be fun. So is there anything else you think is really important that someone should, tune into when it comes to letting be or letting go? Like anything, any closing ideas that you want to bring forward?
Yeah, what's coming up as you ask that is just really connecting into the intuition. That there's so much happening on an intuitive level that oftentimes when we allow ourselves to drop into that place, whether that's through meditation or art or, going on a hike and just being silent and still, there's a lot that the intuition will have to say. And I think especially one of the things to notice is, when are we getting those intuitive hits on something and kind of batting them away?
Right.
Because that is, that intuitive hit's going to keep on getting stronger until we listen.
Yeah. Somebody told me once, and I wish I could cite who said it, but I don't remember. At the very beginning of when I started doing tarot, someone said, spirit brings you messages with a butterfly, baseball bat, or brick wall. And so that's the way I see those things is, we might have the gentle nudgings of intuition, but if it's something that we're really meant to pay attention to, it's going to get louder and louder until we listen.
Absolutely. My childhood, elementary school art teacher, who was also a really spiritual person and healing practitioner. I remember when I was, probably 13 or something, I remember her looking at me and saying, yeah, you're going to keep on getting those nudges, and then they're going to become shoves, and then there's going to be a piano dropped on your head. So, you might want to start listening to them.
Right. Yep. That's always good advice. So you have a meditation group that's a drop-in group for women that meets on Zoom. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I lead a drop-in meditation group that, as you mentioned, is for folks who identify as women. Right now, it's happening every Monday evening. A little bit late for East Coast time, but if you're a night owl, it might be good for you. But I also teach at a variety of other places. There's a drop-in women's meditation group at Spirit Rock Meditation Center that I also guest teach for. And in the next few months, I'm hoping to have some additional classes and offerings that'll be up on my website. I'm just in the preparatory stages of all that, so I don't have that up just yet, but it will be soon.
And can you tell everyone your website?
Yeah, absolutely. My website is juliannasloane.com. That's JuliannaSloane.com. And that's both for meditation and then for one-on-one work, in-depth hypnosis or shamanic counseling.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being a guest. And I am really honored to have had you. And we will tune in again. But for now, let's all be well and be at peace, find our center, and feel whole.
Production of the Be Your Soul podcast is made possible in part by Emerge Skin and Soul, located at 2002 North Elm Street in Greensboro, North Carolina. Emerge Skin and Soul is so much more than just skincare, because you are so much more than just your skin. Emerge believes in offering a skin-to-soul experience, working hand in hand with you to achieve your skincare and self-care goals from the inside out. Offering massage, Reiki, and customized skincare plans, coupled with holistic modalities that bring skin, heart, and whole body into balance and harmony. Visit emergeskinandsoul.com today to learn more and to book your appointment. Now for That's What Sky Says, the part of our podcast where Sky shares tools and tips to help you use today's topic of letting be in your daily life.
Today, we're going to work on processing and releasing, otherwise known as letting go. We hear it all the time. Just let it go, process and release, and so many other ways to trivialize a complex undertaking. The truth, as I see it, is that it is simple and complicated at the same time. The real challenge is that everyone seems to give this advice and no one seems to tell anyone how to actually do it. This is my attempt to give a framework of what processing and releasing might look like. Of course, processing and releasing means that you need to consider all three bodies in the work that you do. We are obviously concentrating on an energetic part of processing and releasing, but I will lightly touch on what this may look like in the other two bodies. I advise that as you do this work, you find a mental emotional guide, like a therapist, and a physical guide, like a yogi, to help you to become fully able to process and release. Physical releasing can take the form of non-supportive pattern behavior choices coming into your awareness, like eating when you're emotional. As it does, you can move the behavior into the space of accepting that it once held a purpose while also knowing that it is no longer helpful, like not punishing yourself for the urge by starving, but understanding this choice no longer serves you. Then eventually creating change or replacement action, like going to take a walk instead. Emotional and mental processing means being aware of the mental emotional tendency, like paying attention to your urge to catastrophize, understanding why this once was needed and why it no longer serves you, by honoring that this trauma response may have held you safe at one point, but no longer serves you. Then creating a replacement thought or feeling by bringing a tool into your mental toolbox to gently guide you into a more peaceful thought pattern. As I said, this is always helpful with a professional guide like a therapist. Where I would like to come in to help is with energetic processing and releasing. It is my firm belief that if you start with processing and releasing the energy patterns, then the other areas will have an easier time of processing and releasing as well. So as we work through the major 8 chakras, we're going to tune into each one and how we can support something moving up through our energy system. For this exercise, I want you to start by thinking of a smaller challenge, a smaller thought pattern you would like to release, or a problem that you're able to work with. Once you have successfully run through this with easier challenges, you can move on to use it for more complicated ones. While holding the idea of what you want to work on in the back of your mind, let's get into a relaxed state. Close your eyes, allow yourself to sit comfortably, and tune into your body. Feeling your breath move in through your nose, cascade through your body into your lungs. As you breathe out, you can tune into breathing in what you need and breathing out that what isn't needed. And as we move into this space, allowing ourselves to be present, breathing in and out, and feeling the flow of our breath through our system, we allow ourselves to tune in to our red root chakra at the base of our spine. Bring awareness to the thing you're trying to release and how it may reside in this root base position, using fear and insecurity to hold it there. Do not judge or over-empower the thought or the feeling. Judging it creates a double negative energy by compounding the original feeling with regret, remorse, guilt, or shame, while also creating a story based on assumption to support. Only classify it as I like this or I do not like this, and then allow whatever it is to shift up into the sacral, the orange sacral chakra right below your belly button. As we tune into it there, we allow the thought to tune into the emotion. Open up space for feeling it transform. Give space for yourself to understand that you cannot control having emotions. Your empowerment is in what you choose to do with those emotions. You have a choice in what you do as this emotion comes forward. Emotions happen, and you have the power to do with them what you want. And as we realize that this emotion is not a fact, we can allow it to move up to the solar plexus, the yellow solar plexus right above the belly button. We ask, what is this emotion telling us? What message is it bringing forward? Can we identify through discernment what is real and what is our ego or monkey mind trying to control? When we can pair out and disconnect how we truly feel in the stories we've told ourselves, we can feel that message and recognize the truth of the emotion in it within our system as we move it up to the heart. Calling it up into our heart center, our green heart chakra at the center of our breast. We can look at it with compassion. Can we bring love and empathy to ourselves as well as anyone involved? Can we remember that empathy does not mean condoning bad behavior? It just means we free ourselves from judgment and double negative feelings like shame, guilt, regret, or remorse. Forgiveness frees the situation to transform. How can we let love be the dominant energy that surrounds this now? When we feel we've surrounded ourselves in the situation, in the feeling of love, we can shift it up to the throat, the blue throat chakra, tuning in. Now that you've released the feelings from the double negative energies, can you clearly speak your truth? Can you journal or have a conversation surrounding it? Keep bringing it home to love if it wanders into the double negatives. Once you've released this through communication, now we're ready to move it up to the third eye, the indigo third eye, right above the brow and the center of the forehead. This is where we bring insight and understanding in. Can you see how this feeling transpired without using control or judgment? Can you see that you've been through similar feelings before and released them? Can you see where patterns are trying to control your reaction instead of allowing you to create a choice and an action? Once this insight is brought forward, you can lift it up to the crown. The violet crown is at the top of the head, and this is where we look at connectivity to all beings. Like you, others have felt this way before. Like you, others have made mistakes that have hurt someone. Like you, all beings are just doing the best that they can. Give this into the universal truth and see how you have been on both sides of this feeling before. Once you can see both sides in oneness, move it up to the seat of the soul. The seat of the soul, the translucent energy just above the head. Allow yourself to know that the universe is much more equipped to heal this than any one individual. How do you allow this to lift up into Spirit's arms for transformation? The more we let go and allow the universe to guide us, the greater the success of transformation. This doesn't mean that you or others release accountability. It means that through allowing divine intervention, remembering intention over expectation, the best path possible to healing will come forward. As these release from the system, you can fortify the release with an affirmation. Release, release, release. I release this back to the space and place from which it came. Use this for yourself, as I said, starting with small releases, making your way into greater release in combination with helpful guides and professionals in your mental and emotional and physical self as well. I hope this is helpful, and if it speaks to you, you can learn more in my Intro to Chakras course, available on our website at www.beyoursoul.org. I'm grateful that you joined us today, and I'm honored and blessed for our connection. May you be well, may you be whole, may you find peace, and may you feel blessed.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Be Your Soul podcast. We hope you'll like, follow, and share your thoughts on your podcast platform and spread the word about our new podcast with your family and friends. This podcast is published on the second and fourth Fridays of each month, but you can stay connected with Sky in between episodes. Visit Be Your Soul Sky if you're on Facebook. It's Be Your Soul Podcast on Instagram, and there's more information at our website, beyoursoul.org. This podcast is produced at Muddy Creek Studios.